Okay. So my idea worth spreading from this theology class is basically about the value that a person who's not religious can get from this class and the Bible itself. And I was someone who, in my younger life, would identify as Christian. And like if someone would have asked me, I would have said I was Christian. But as my life went on and I went through things, I sort of, any like aspect of faith I had, I didn't have anymore. And so I don't think it was right to call myself a Christian anymore. So I am a non-religious person, and I have been for a while. And so going into like a theology class in a religious school, was always concerned, like, what am I going to get out of this class? Like, is it going to be valuable to me, or is it just going to be something that like I sort of get through and just like come out on the other end and be like, okay, I made it through, we're good, without actually having learned anything valuable. And I think that was definitely not the case for me. I think if you come into it with sort of a cynicism, then you're not going to get that much out of it, because you're sort of going to try and take down the ideas that are presented to you. But if you come into it with an open mind, like I believe I did, I think you can come out learning a lot and sort of you can look for where like stuff is valuable to you, because it's not always going to be if you're not religious, because you don't believe in a God, but there's still messages within the Bible that are valuable to anybody, even if they're not religious. And I think it's sort of, there's a power that comes with being not religious, is in that you can get to pick and choose what you find valuable from the Bible. You're not forced to sort of come to terms with like the harmful aspects of the Bible, and you can pick out the stories and like parables that do have value to you. Like we talked about a story of David and how he like got a woman pregnant and ended up like having her husband killed in battle. And as a religious person, I think there's an element of you having to come to terms with that, and like that's a part of your holy book. And there are other things like that as well. But as a non-religious person, you can say, okay, I don't believe in that, and like you don't have to come to terms with it in the same way other people do. And so there are plenty of parts of the Bible that do have a lot of value, including to me, and like parables and stories that are good, like the parable of the Good Samaritan, where there's a man who has been like traveling, and he's been robbed and hurt by other people, and he's been lying on the ground and he's hurt, and a lot of people pass by him and do not help him, I think including a priest as well, until one man, the good Samaritan, as he's known in this case, stops to help him, and he like makes sure he's okay. He like brings him to an inn, and he makes sure like the guy's gonna be all right. And you don't have to be religious to get a good message from this. It's about helping people who are just helping everyone, even if you don't know them, even if they're a stranger. It's about helping people who are hurting. And you don't have to like fear God to want to do this. Like you can read the story and be like, this person did the right thing, and I want to do that in my life. And so that's just one of the stories that has value from the Bible, even if you don't have the fear in God telling you to do this. You also have like the parable of the prodigal son. And this sort of starts the idea of forgiveness, which is perhaps what I admire most about Christianity. How he had a man has a couple sons, and he has one who basically he gives them money, and he has one son who leaves. He loses all the money, and the son eventually decides he's going to come back, but he's very concerned about, like, I left my dad and I blew all his money, like, is he going to be okay with me? But the father is immediately so happy to see his son and is not resentful for the fact that he left or that he lost the money that he was given. And even though like the other brother is jealous, sort of the father emphasizes this idea of like love and forgiveness that is very powerful, and that he doesn't even think twice about the fact of like what his son has done. And how like a lot of people could be very angry about that, but he's immediately like, this is my son, I love my son, I'm going to forgive him right away. Which, again, I think it's a good message that you don't need to be religious to get. further on the idea of forgiveness, you have the story of Jesus like forgiving an adulteress that we read, and you have people present this woman to Jesus as being an adulteress and saying she was caught in the act, and they're sort of looking to like, all right, well, shouldn't we stone her? And Jesus says something that is one of my favorite things I read from the Bible, is that the person without sin can cast the first stone at this woman, and no one casts a stone or throws a stone because no one is without sin. And for me, it's like the idea of sin is less important, but just the idea of being able to look inward on yourself and look at yourself before you judge other people on like the actions that they have committed, because you could have committed something similar yourself, and you're not necessarily being punished for that. And so does this person also deserve to be punished for that? Maybe not. And so, and then Jesus also, he forgives this woman. And I think the idea of forgiveness within Christianity, like I said before, is what I find to be most powerful about it. We talked about how Amish people immediately basically forgave this man who killed some of them. And they did it right away. And it's not something I necessarily understand, but it's something that I admire, because I don't think I could do that myself. I think it takes a lot of courage, even though some people may view it as weakness. I think it's a pretty courageous thing to do, to be able to forgive somebody like that. And so it's sort of like anyone can read the Bible and take out something. And part of what I take out is this idea of forgiveness that I think is really, really powerful. And it's not something that, it's just one example. So like, if you're a non-religious person and you come to this class or the Bible with an open mind like I did, you can find these stories and you can pick them out. And you don't have to be religious to get the value out of them. You don't have to view it as, I'm not going to go to heaven, or God's going to punish me if I don't do these things. You can sort of look at them in a different way and be like, look at them as suggestions about how you should live your life, because it's not like necessarily a requirement for you. And I think that can make it more powerful in some way, in that it's more voluntary. Not that everyone is going to do this because they fear God, but you can look at these stories, and there are plenty more stories other than just these ones, and get really valuable messages out of these stories. And it's something that I wasn't necessarily expecting, because I hadn't read much of the Bible before, and I hadn't taken a theology class before. So I think if you're a non-religious person who's going to be studying religion and the Bible, that what you need to know is that you need to come into it with an open mind, and you will get valuable things out of your study of it. Even if you are not a religious person, there's still stuff there that you're going to be able to, in the end of when the class is over or your studies are over, you're going to be able to look back and say, like, oh, I can use these things in my life. And I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but I'm really glad it happened. And I think I encourage people to have an open mind so it can happen to them as well.